Hey, welcome to our Friday webinar series. Glad you could join us. Today we're going to do stress and adrenal fatigue. It's something very prominent in our society. People are a little more stressed than they know, and they're depleting their battery. Susan and I see this in our clinical practice all the time. We have lots of good um, techniques and tips and tricks in order to help you overcome it. And we're going to walk it through a brief PowerPoint presentation today to explain some of these signs and symptoms that don't seem connected, but when we're going to tie it all in, and you'll see that the same underlying mechanisms are there's some dysfunction in your body, and it's from digestion to hormonal imbalance, etc. And a lot of times this adrenal fatigue pattern is the driver, and if it's not addressed, then oftentimes you're chasing symptoms. So we're going to give you the presentation now, and then Susan's going to walk through an exercise that really helps to integrate mind, body, spirit, and de-stress your body afterward. So yeah, the stress and adrenal fatigue, that's why I've said undiagnosed condition, and there's a lot of natural strategies to the rescue. It's something that you don't really ever, there's no real test medically that will show that adrenal fatigue. A little bit with cortisol and adrenaline and blood work, but commonly it doesn't even get to that point where your blood work or something significant shows up in any imaging. And because it's more of a condition, it's just you're draining the battery. So that's commonly why you don't really hear of it. And we're going to walk through and see the fight or flight response, which is that, in humans, if you were running from a bear, the nervous system kicks in a fight or flight response, which is the sympathetic nervous system. When we sleep and we're in calm state, we're predominantly parasympathetic, rest and repair. And so running from a bear, you can picture the bear like a few feet behind you. That would be like a 10 out of 10 stress pattern. Most people we see in our clinical practice are in the jogging from a bear daily, meaning, visualize that bear is 250 to 500 meters behind you, no immediate danger, but you're always sensing it's there. So something is, you have this unease, and you'll see things, like PMS, hot flashes, sweats, mood swings, abdominal fat gain, decreased sex drive, even insomnia. And then you can tie that into feeling a bit more nervous or a bit more anxious. And we're not talking like full blown panic attacks necessarily, just mean that on edge. And that's that subclinical adrenal fatigue pattern that's happened. That's why it's mild depression, poor memory, just forgetfulness, some of those things. And you can even see how it ties into the digestive system, right? Like, so you have indigestion, acid reflux, irritable bowel syndrome. So it paints a ton of symptoms that are all interrelated and showing how your body is just a little more dysfunctional than you want. And so this is when you're looking at the image, you can see this is the hormonal system. And right in the middle, you have the adrenal glands. They sit right on top of the kidneys, and they're tiny little lima bean sized glands, and they secrete up to 50 different hormones and neurotransmitters. The two we're going to talk about today is cortisol and adrenaline. Those are the main hormones in a stress response. And so what you want to think about is if you were jogging from a bear, or you're in a little more immediate danger, you were running from a bear, it's close, your body's brilliant and it turns things on that's required, which would mean increased blood flow to the extremities so you could run, fight, or get away, right? And then your body has to turn the energy down and blood flow away from things that aren't important so that saves your life. So if you're running from a bear, what isn't important? Well, reproductive glands don't need blood flow and energy. Your digestion doesn't need to be activated. Even thinking, like critical thinking in the frontal lobes, abstract thought, that's not something that's required. memory. Hey, where's my honey-do list? The body will send blood away from those areas and send it to the areas required. And that's why you can just basically understand a lot of the symptoms that we're going to talk about. And we'll go over a few more. Um, is what just starts to shut down. And it doesn't mean 100% shut down. It just means it's turning the volume down on those areas. And hopefully, then when you rest and recover, things come back online. And so, in the stress phases, you have what's called the alarm phase, the recovery phase, resistance, and exhaustion. And what that means is if something's immediate, you're in this quick alarm phase and you have lots of energy to handle it and it quickly resolves. And that's in that recovery phase. And so there's a peak and then there's a little bit of a valley in your recovery phase. Resistance phase, excuse me, is if it's going on for a longer period of time, but you have reserves, you're sort of draining your battery though. And that could be then something that would be a little more stressful and it's lasting for quite a few days as opposed to just within an hour or two. What happens is if there's some unending stressor that you're not fully resolving, then you get into the exhaustion phase. And what happens is if something's been going on for months and months and months, maybe even you could extrapolate to years, then the signs and symptoms that started at the beginning actually start to show up again. However, your battery's more drained than it was in the alarm and recovery phase. And that's where health can start to decline. That's where Susan's very good at the mind, body, spirit, emotional side of things to help people address some of the deeper seated aspects. It could be just these recordings that are underneath that you see commonly, and it starts to drain the person. And as you resolve that, you start getting out of that resistance and exhaustion phase. And so then nutritionally, you can also eat more efficiently, drink your water, which we'll get to in a second, and then your body is recovering. So it's recharging the battery. So that just gives you an overview of how things progress. And so some of the quick signs and symptoms that you're in that resistance exhaustion phase is like my ability to handle stress or pressure has decreased. So we can all freak out every once in a while in the alarm phase. However, this long term where you just can't handle anything, it means you're getting more to that exhaustion and resistance. And I have a decreased tolerance to people, right? Or just intolerant. I am intolerant to a lot of things, but wow, people tend to irritate me more, and even if you start to think, you're like, wow, I'm not as clear as I used to be. So the brain's not as sharp. Something more on the physical side, like I get lightheaded or dizzy if I get up too quickly. I tie my shoes, I stand up rapidly, or we get out of bed too early, sorry, too quickly, and it's maybe too early. Then you're like, oh, it's taking me longer to gain my equilibrium, and that's because the blood is not getting to your brain and oxygen as quickly, and the adrenaline is needed to make that happen. So then it's not happening. So it's taking you that half second to reorient. Also, you'll see even temperature. Commonly, people say frequently cold, intolerant to cold. And if you are someone who's like swinging way too hot and then way too cold, the adrenal glands are needed to help stabilize stress, right? So extreme temperature stress, if you have a strong adrenal gland system, then your body can handle the swings. And if it's getting weaker, then your temperature starts to swing back and forth. For the muscle skeletal system, then something that you would experience would be sort of like I feel weak all over. I maybe feel more achy, like stiffness, that soreness, inflexibility. Another one is like I bruise more easily than in the past. That's something we see a lot when people come in. And so that's it. Your body is just more weak and it's not able to push back, against other stimuli. In the immune side of things, catching colds and flus all the time, your immune system's down a notch or two, and you just can't respond properly or handle any extra external stress because there are bugs around us all the time. We touch things. It's not like you can avoid it. The goal is to make your body robust so you can push back against it. And that's what we're talking about. Same, even when people become a little more allergic or sensitive, they're like, gee, it's been a few years and I tend to be more allergic to dust or the pollen or something's going on outside. For us, we want to look at restoring your battery charge, and then you can push back against it because there's pollen all the time, right? And you can see then or it correlates with that anything respiratory, colds, asthma, etc. Adult onset asthma is a common diagnosis. Yet, looking at the adrenals and stress handling is something you want to look at to make sure your body's stronger. Also, then the common thing we see is for energy patterns, just like I have to really bear down and force myself to keep going. Like everything seems like a chore. And I used to love doing this, but now, man, it's really tough. So again, the battery charge running a little lower, right? Easily fatigued, suddenly run out of energy. You'll often see that at between 3 and 5 p.m. That's where a lot of people on that adrenal fatigue side, they're like, oh, I'm just going to crash out, or I'm craving sweets, or I need another coffee, something to get the energy up. And so I can get to, finish work and get to supper time, right? That's not uncommon. Um, Often too, you'll see hypoglycemia, low blood sugar that coincides. Your system's not able to keep the energy pattern at a nice even flow. It's basically up and down and up and down. You get this erratic roller coaster ride happening. So then food patterns, people aren't foolish. What actually works? Well, coffee is amazing. Like caffeine works as a stimulant to the adrenal glands, and you can use it as medicine. We're not against coffee. It's only if you're saying I can't function in the day without 4, 5, 6 coffee or more. If you're just constantly craving it, because then you're getting this caffeine hit all the time. So have a couple cups, enjoy it, utilize it as medicine, but own it and don't have it own you. And so craving salt is not as a common thing, especially the bag of chips with a ton of salt. That's carbs, fat, and salt. You'll see people are just craving a ton of the salt is also a nourishing mineral to the adrenals and the kidneys and adrenal glands. And so again, you can have some and you can use some high quality Celtic or pink Himalayan sea salt that's nourishing to the adrenal gland axis. It's just only if you're craving so much, then there's something that your body is requiring a bigger hit in order to feel better. Same with sweets. If having the odd cookie or a bit of sweet and treats is not against all rules. It's just that if you're eating candy and cookies and you don't feel good unless you're getting a ton of sugar, we'll look at the adrenal gland pattern. Also, you'll see if you do miss meals and you're like super hangry and again, intolerant to people and you're just maybe crusty, the blood sugar is dropping too low, your adrenals aren't strong. And so that is a surefire sign that your body is out of balance, right? So the things that we're talking about, they work and they work for a reason. We just want to, as practitioners, understand why is that happening and then support the system so that we can create more balance so you can enjoy the things but not require them. So some of the dietary recommendations that Susan and I have: chewing the food in a not hurried state. I mean, it's easier said than done. So commonly, if you can chew and extract more nourishment, but take the time to actually eat, you'll push your body into the parasympathetic or rest and repair side of the nervous system. And so you're not in a hurried sympathetic fight or flight response. So if you do that more often, put some candlelight on, sit down, actually take the time to eat instead of, at the counter or rushing between jobs or between activities, whatever it is for your schedule. You keep making that happen, you'll have a new set point. The other thing is to make sure then to have a balanced meal, like protein, fat, and carbohydrate at each meal, instead of just a quick piece of carbs or like pasta and quick toast and with a bit of jam and out the door. If that was a breakfast, then have an egg or two with the toast. Put some butter on the toast. So that would be your fat. Your eggs would be your fat and protein. And then you have your carbohydrate, which is your bread. And that'll give you an even energy pattern. And then your body can recharge instead of smacking it with a huge amount of sugar or carbs with and no fat or protein or minimal gives you the hit, but then it's going to drop you like on the other side of the roller coaster ride. And then by the time, mid morning, you need another coffee, more sugar, more treats, more something. So you're just kind of poking yourself and doing this all day. So quality food, balance it out, and you'll notice cleaner, less food chemicals, like just keep the sugar down. I mean, we like honey, maple syrup, brown sugar, you can get coconut sugar. There's all different types of sweeteners. Some people like stevia. So it doesn't mean you have to avoid it. There's all kinds of foods. It can be carbohydrate, it can be bread, pasta, rice, potato, squash. There's so many things, sweet potato. Choose the meals that you like, but with a balance of the macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrate. The other thing we find, clean, pure water. Make sure you're drinking enough. Flush the system. Water also transports your nutrients to the cells. So if you're too dehydrated, your system doesn't function like it's supposed to. And we like to have about 50 to 75, so 1 liter for every 50 to 75 pounds of body weight approximately, to customize your water intake. So avoid, minimize, again, excess caffeine, excess refined sugar, excess alcohol. Small amount of alcohol is beneficial. If you have to have a bottle of wine a night just to calm down, then there's lots of stress in the system, no matter what the origin is, family, friends, work, or all of the above. Bottom line is extra alcohol will definitely overwhelm the nervous system and hormonal system and disrupt things. Also, hydrogenated and processed oils. Your hormones are made from fats and cholesterol. You need to bring in high quality fats in order to recharge and replenish your cells and make good quality building blocks available for your body to make all of those things. If you're eating deep fried foods all the time and packaged stuff, these hydrogenated oils cause inflammation and also interfere with the proper cellular structure and hormonal manufacture. And so it's nice to get as much of that out of your body as possible. Same with junk, cheap packaged foods, tons of additives, anything that's overwhelming the system that doesn't bring nourishment also basically puts stress on the body. And the more stress you put on dietarily, the more your adrenal glands have to work to push back against the intrusion into our system. So things that we use clinically in practice, there are some supplements that are well known to help support the body. And there are formulas that will contain things, they call them adaptogenic herbs, things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, Eleutherococcus, which is called Siberian ginseng. You'll have adrenal glandulars and also L-tyrosine. These are all things that help the body to adapt and recharge to any stressors. And they do it without hormones. So it's getting your own body to produce the hormones properly. If you take too much hormones from the outside sources, which is called exogenous or outside, your own body actually sees that the bloodstream is flooded with too much hormone, and then it won't produce enough on its own. The better strategy in the wellness space is to get your own glands to be optimal and recharge themselves. And these types of products actually help that. Magnesium is also a master mineral to handle for the nervous system. The nervous system communicates with the hormonal system, the adrenal glands, to work properly. And magnesium is used to make energy, or ATP. And the body under stress is using up a lot of your magnesium reserves. So oftentimes people, if they just take a magnesium supplement and eat foods high in magnesium, that they feel more calm and balanced. And basically that's what you're supposed to be anyway. B complex is also used up, all your B vitamins, specifically B12, used up in the stress response. And so eating foods and or taking some additional high quality supplements to help keep your levels topped up will allow you to push back against whatever stressors you're dealing with. We also like to use specific mushroom extracts in our clinic, reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane, and you'll see different formulas that have 2 to 5, 6, 7 of the best medicinal mushroom extracts that have been tested to really help hormonally and nervous system to stay in optimal health. And they're also jam packed with a lot of vitamins and minerals. And finally, to have your sleep work support program. Sleep is so important. And in the stress response, oftentimes we get looped where we don't sleep great. It's hard to fall asleep. It's interrupted. And then you wake up unrefreshed. And if you have to get up, say at 6 in the morning, it'd be better if you could get up at 8, but you have to work. Every time then you're cutting short your repair, which is at nighttime, is when we sleep, rest, and repair. We build new organs, we detoxify. This is our natural cycle and rhythm. So what we like to use here to make sure if people are having trouble sleeping, meditation, which Susan will talk about, and there's exercises. Yet you can use magnesium. There's formulas that have melatonin. GABA is also a calming neurotransmitter. So you can use those short term to help the body break a vicious cycle and get into a proper pattern in order to heal. And that'll recharge your adrenal glands. So that'll give you a nice, well-rounded look at all the implications of what organ systems are involved. And you might think you're falling apart with so many different symptoms, yet it's usually the same base of the pyramid. Address the base that we discussed, and everything gets stronger, and you'll find a lot of those signs and symptoms just disappear, and you'll feel like yourself again. And with that, we'll give you a nice little exercise Susan will present in order that you can do something right away. And whenever you need to, you can use it and recharge.
So, a couple things for stress. I know everybody's out in their car driving around, they see a lot of traffic and things. And so, just a simple exercise that you can do just to sort of dial down some of the stress is breathing. And it can be as simple as just breathing in for the count of 4, holding for the count of 4, and exhaling for the count of 4. And if you do this just a few times, you'll see that your stress level will start to come down. The other thing is like walking in nature. If you can get out in nature and hug a few trees and just really ground yourself and take some deep breaths of some fresh air, that'll really lower your stress. I also noticed in my practice with tapping, people are able to express their stress levels have decreased. So it's as simple as just taking a couple of minutes and lightly tapping with your hand, a few fingers on your head, a few fingers on your heart and on the belly. And if you just do this simple technique for just a few minutes, you'll see that the stress will start to just decrease and melt away. And so those are just a few tips to give you for the busy season. And we look forward to helping you in our private practice and see you soon. Thank you.